True or false? All disabilities are visible.
That's false. Even though we assume that disabilities are only the ones that we can see, there are so many that we can't see that are internal in children. Social disabilities, emotional disabilities, cognitive disabilities, where they just may have trouble with reading and writing. There are so many different disabilities that we don't always see around us.
Not all disabilities are visible. Some people have emotional and learning differences that you cannot see. Others have differences which you can see, such as someone in a wheelchair. All human beings are born with differences. Some differences are seen by society as disabilities.
True or false? All people with disabilities are the same.
False.
Why?
Because there are a range of disabilities. There can be physical, mental, intellectual learning, and it's just like a whole spectrum. So not all disabilities are the same.
Not all individuals have the same type of disability. For example, learning disability is different from physical disability. Not all people with the same disability are the same. For example, two children with autism may have different kinds of learning needs and abilities. Their upbringings, experiences, and how far along the autistic spectrum they are at makes them different from one another. True or false? People with disabilities are to be pitied.
False.
Why do you say that?
They don't need our pity. They're like any other human being. They play like everyone else. They do the same things. They just do it in a different way that society doesn't necessarily think is normal.
People with disabilities do not need pity. Pity is not productive. Support is productive. So is love and positive encouragement. They do not need to be told that they are brave or courageous for living with a disability. They need opportunities to become the best they can be and full participants within the community.
True or false? People with disabilities are helpless.
False.
Why do you say that?
People with disabilities want to live their lives independently because they're capable of living their lives independently. They don't want others to have control over their life. They want freedom, and they want to do things on their own rather than have everyone else do things for them.
Most children and young people with a disability want opportunities to be independent and have control over their own lives. They want to be able to look after themselves as much as they can rather than be looked after.
True or false? People with disabilities are sick.
This myth is false because people with disabilities are not sick. They are actually very healthy, and oftentimes when you say that they're sick, it creates the assumption that what they have can be cured, where it cannot be, and all they need is just support and love and the materials that others may not need to be able to get to that certain level.
A disability is not necessarily a sickness. Many people with disabilities are healthy and free of disease. Mistaking a disability for sickness carries on the negative assumptions that the person can and should be cured.
True or false? Disabilities only affect children. Adults outgrow disabilities.
False.
Why?
Because each individual who is born with a disability never actually outgrows them. They carry them on throughout their whole life. They just find new ways to adapt to their each individual needs and finds a way to succeed in life their own way, and they find new strengths and weaknesses through adapting to their everyday life.
For individuals born with disability, most will continue throughout their lifespan. Most people do not grow out of their disabilities. Often by adulthood, people have found ways to use their strength to adapt and accommodate to their special needs. Some disabilities are acquired during youth and adulthood from unfortunate accidents or health issues. True or false? People with physical disabilities are dumb and cannot learn.
False.
Why do you say that?
Just because a child has a physical disability does not mean that they cannot learn. It may mean that they process things a little bit slower or they cannot speak, but they can still understand and comprehend you. Just because they have a disability or a physical disability means that they may be able to learn easier or better than someone without a disability.
Just because a child has a physical disability does not mean that he or she cannot learn. Just because a child has difficulty speaking to you, it does not mean that he or she has difficulty in understanding what you say. They can learn as well or better than someone without a disability.
True or false? People with learning disabilities are stupid and retarded.
False.
Why do you say that?
Because we all learn in different ways. We all have unique learning styles. People with learning disabilities are just as capable as anybody else.
People with learning disabilities range from average to gifted intellectuality. Many may function as if they have below average intelligence because their learning needs are being overlooked by parents and the school system. People with learning disabilities can learn and succeed. It takes proper recognition, encouragements, supports, and lots of hard work.
True or false? Learning disability is just an excuse for lazy, unmotivated, and irresponsible people.
False.
Why do you say that?
Because people with learning disabilities process things differently, so they might not be an auditory learner or a visual learner. They might just need a different way of teaching, and they might need a little bit more time to process. So it's not necessarily that they're lazy, they just might need a different way of teaching or a little bit more time than your typical students.
Learning disabilities not caused by character flaws, but due to neurological impairments, the brain's ability to receive and process information. And people with learning disabilities, including children, process information differently. They have a different way of learning or remembering. For some, it is very hard to learn visually, or they forget things easily, or they may write their letters backwards, or they cannot remember how the letter is written or what it is called. With the right support, they can learn as well or better than a person without disability.
True or false? Learning disabilities are only school related. They do not affect other areas of a person's life.
False.
Why?
It's false because learning disabilities also affect individuals in their social settings as well. So they may not be able to pick up on different cues or different body language and conversations. And they may also have difficulty differentiating between different sounds and words, and that can present difficulties for them as well.
Many people with learning disabilities also have difficulties in social settings. For example, they may have difficulties reading body language and subtle language cues. They may not differentiate between sounds and words, and this may cause difficulties in their daily activities.
True or false? All people with disabilities have trouble hearing.
False.
Why is that?
Not all children have hearing impairments. Some children might just need a longer time to respond to a question that you're asking. They may have a longer reaction time to what you're saying. What you need to do with children, any child, is to talk to them clearly and in a normal tone of voice.
There is no need to yell or raise your voice when speaking to a child or youth who is blind, in a wheelchair, or have some other sort of physical disability. Speak in a normal tone of voice unless they ask you to speak louder.
True or false? A child with disabilities is God's way of punishing the parents.
That is false. A child with a disability is never a punishment to parents. All children are blessings to parents, and they should be treated that way. A child with a disability, although it may be a little bit more difficult to raise and to know how to talk to and how to treat, they are never a punishment. They should be treated with love and respect, and they will always learn and develop in a unique way that needs to be understood by their parents.
All children are God's children. All children can be exciting and exhausting, but it may seem that your child with a disability is especially so. Children are children. They are all treasures. Although challenging at times, they are never punishments. Nurture your child's strengths and gifts. Even though they may seem to struggle in one area, they may excel in another. Pay attention to his or her interest and passion. Helping them develop their passions, strengths, may help them in areas of difficulty. True or false? Never ask questions about a person's disability.
False, because the more questions you ask about the disability, the more you learn about the person, and it gets rid of the stigma surrounding the disability.
People can ask questions with respect about a person's disability, so that the disability becomes less mystical and fearsome. Do not assume they need help. Ask them.
People with disabilities should be hidden away and should not be visible in the community. True or false?
False.
Why?
Just because someone has a disability doesn't mean that they have no abilities whatsoever. A lot of them actually have abilities that other people without disabilities don't have. They just need support from the community and from their families to feel accepted and be integrated into the community. Just because someone has a disability, it does not mean that they do not have abilities. Many children and young people have talents and abilities that other people might not have. However, they do need support from their community and their families to accept them for who they are.